maybe need to get fired up a little bit.
Hi, welcome back to Guff Stuff Weekly Podcast. I'm Javen,
I'm Guff.
and this is what, take 3 now?
I guess so. What are we talking about?
I don't even know anymore.
Game terminology. Let's do it. Gamers terminology.
How about gamers jargon? Let's just cut out the terminology.
Sure. Kind of jargon.
Jargon. I want to talk about things like
322.
322, wall bangs, artosis pylons,
Don't know.
things that are like specifically like in games that players who play those games reference, but people who don't play those games might not know what it means.
Yeah.
Control groups.
I even play some of those games. I don't know what they mean.
Control groups is another good one.
Fair enough.
Anyways, let's cover a couple of them. 322. You said that one right away.
Yeah.
But that was from a previous.
What? Yeah, no, I don't know what it means.
322 is a Dota term for. It basically means you're throwing the game.
Right.
Like you're intentionally throwing the game.
Oh.
Because of a Dota player a long time ago who threw a professional match for $322.
Okay.
And so forever onward, it's been known as 322 when you throw a match intentionally.
All right. Well, there you go.
We have the artosis pylon.
Yeah.
There are some things that are like community made and like almost like esport adjacent.
Right.
That's not really a good way of putting it. But there are things like game specific, player specific.
Right.
That, you know.
One I can think of is Baron's chat. If you never played World of Warcraft, you might not have any clue what I'm talking about.
Nope, no idea.
But I guarantee any World of Warcraft type player you come across that played before maybe the last couple years, you say the word Baron's chat to them, they're going to probably either one of two things. They're going to start laughing or they're going to start cringing.
Why?
Because in Baron, there's this zone in the World of Warcraft on the Horde side called the Barons.
Is that where Keck comes from?
Where?
Is that where Keck comes from?
Probably. I don't know.
Because Keck like on the Orc server is LOL, right? But it's Keck or something like that.
Yeah, probably. But it was a big empty zone, and really all it was used for was PvP.
Okay.
For the Alliance to come over and attack a Horde city. Okay. And it was far enough away from everywhere else so the Horde could show. But it was a lot of trash talking. That's all it was. And the garbage they would talk about, you could go one zone over and you would hear nothing. You wouldn't know anything about what they were talking about.
Yeah.
But it would be just Chuck Norris jokes, dad jokes, trash talking of any type was all in the Baron's chat.
So if you mention Baron's chat,
everybody knows exactly what that means.
It's just garbage. Basically.
Yeah, it's like going to Reddit and finding the dark Reddit page and just like watching the trolls.
Okay.
So I'm not proud of that.
I guess
gamer generation decided to come up with garbage like that, but
let's just toss it back and forth on this one then.
Okay.
I said earlier wall bangs.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Prior to the episode. But a wall bang is when bullet physics allow any projectile, essentially, in an FPS game or otherwise, to go through a wall and hit a player and cause them to die.
Right.
It's very common in a lot of games that you have some walls that are penetrable, some that aren't, some that are more penetrable. Hunt Showdown does a very good job of stuff like that. Like you can't shoot through brick walls, but you can shoot through wood.
Okay.
Stuff like that. I
haven't played that before, so.
But the wall bang is just a ubiquitous term in FPSs of someone shot me through a wall.
Right.
I've been wall banged. That's basically it.
Just shortening down the terminology.
Yeah, to make it more like, because in a fast twitch scenario, sometimes you can't be like, someone shot me through the wall.
Right.
And so like you try to say that as your teammates running around the corner, would be like, I got wall banged.
Right.
Oh, okay. So then I immediately can relate. It's just like the military acronyms and stuff.
Which is frustrating. I can tell you from my perspective and your people younger than me's perspective. I won't say you, but the people younger than me. When I'm playing in games with people younger than me, like say we're playing Project Zomboid now.
Okay.
I will say that you guys are using terminology that I probably wouldn't use because one, it's literally harder for me to learn new things than it is for you guys.
Yeah.
And to memorize, like my brain is full of crap from the 80s and 90s and, late 70s. You guys are, this is how the younger people are learning stuff now. So You guys are memorizing all these things, and in 20 years, you guys would be like, "What's wrong with me?" Like my grandson's going to use words that my daughter Katie and my son Mike are going to be like, "Why are you talking like?"
I mean,
this?
that's.
I think that's what it comes down to.
I mean, that's to some extent true, but it's not just in video games and jargon.
No, it's everything.
I mean,
it's like military acronyms.
Well, not only that, but even in like common vernacular, like it's how many people do you hear say, "Oh, that was the bee's knees" anymore?
Yeah, right. No,
that's just a language thing that changes over time.
Oh, I know.
But I want to talk specifically about like jargon.
Yeah.
Like like jargon in the like military is really common, like you mentioned. In air control, it's really common. In coding, it's ungodly common.
That's why I don't talk to my friend Buddy about
it. Because it's like music is another one.
Yeah, no, I don't talk to musicians.
If you ever talk to two musicians, that like it's like there's jargon is basically shorthand for speaking another language. Right.
Yeah, and when I'm listening to gamers jargon, sometimes it's frustrating.
Yeah, I get that. Do you have any other ones that you can think of?
Nothing, no specific topics. I know when I was listening to people in Discord talking about Baldur's Gate 3, they were using a lot of acronyms and short words that I just have no clue what they were talking about. And there'd be times where I'd be like, "Yo, kid, tell me what the hell this means because you guys are using these words over and over. And I want to know if I should be mad or I should be happy."
Oh, let's talk about D&D jargon.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Because you and I should both be fairly familiar with that. Oh, if I tell you that a spell it's a magic missile.
Right.
You know what it does.
Right.
Or if I go, it has the same area as a fireball.
Right.
You know, like.
Right.
But anybody who doesn't play D&D will be like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
like,
right.
How big is a fire? Is it a tiny ball of fire? Like a golf ball? Is it a fucking nuclear bomb? What is it?
That's true.
There's a lot of jargon that we just take for granted.
Oh, no, I agree 100%. And the stuff that I use for jargon, I know that there's people that are younger than me that go, "Are you mental, man?"
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what is wrong with you? Like, even just now, am I mental?
Yeah.
Wait, who uses that anymore? Old people. That's it. Literally old people.
I mean, British people a lot, usually. It's pretty common.
Barring any people getting upset, I would use the R word.
Oh, yeah.
Which you're not supposed to use
that word. Yeah, you're not.
But, when I was a kid, everybody said that.
Even me.
Or even...
In the early 2000s, late 90s, like, it was totally fine. But it's crazy how things change, too. Like,
I know.
But, again, floating back to jargon.
Yep.
What are some other D&D ones? Like, backstab? Like, knowing what backstab means in each edition? Because a backstab isn't just going up and stabbing somebody in the back.
Right.
Each edition has, like, a different meaning for it, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like, oh, it's just attacking with advantage in 5th edition.
Yeah, that kind of broke me a little bit. Like backstab in 2nd ed, you literally had to be.
They had to be unaware of you. It was an attack. It could be you could hit them in the front.
Right, but they had to know you weren't even there.
In 1st edition, you literally had to be behind them, and they had to be unaware of you.
Right.
You could not shoot them with a bow. You had to stab them from behind with a small weapon that was capable of backstab.
Right.
There was a table for it, like everything. AC, that's another like abbreviation combo.
Okay. THACO.
THACO.
No, I've just broke half of the people up.
Yeah, no, but like there's tons of acronyms and stuff we use in D&D that we just take for granted.
Right.
And the only reason you know them is because it was important enough for you to learn at the time. Because you used it all the time.
Yep.
If you don't use it all the time, you don't need to learn it. But if you're trying to communicate it with other people, then you need to learn the jargon.
I found that the older I get, the less important I think things are for me to learn. I don't know why. Yeah. Jargon is one of them. It's just not important to me. Unless I want to know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, and it's just a shorthand. But at any point, you could be like, if I used to be really bad about like if someone said a jargon word to me, I'd just kind of nod. And be like, oh yeah, I know what that means.
Right.
Now I just stop it. I'm like, what does that mean?
Like, yeah, if I don't know what it means, I want to know.
I put the embarrassment factor aside. Because I used to be really like I used to be a big like character flaw of me is like I would just like pretend like I knew what people were talking about because I didn't want to seem dumb. But now I'm just like I have no idea what that means. Could you explain that to me?
I can agree. I do pretty much the same thing now. If I feel that
And it's funny because like stopping and asking somebody what something means actually gives you like almost more more weight.
Yeah,
in the conversation because it shows you're engaging. You know.
Yep.
But yeah, we can go on and on about jargon. This is an episode, and I'll tell you what the episode's about. It's a laundry list episode. We're gonna clean up a bunch of stuff that we might not be able to get full episodes of.
Right.
And I just want to be able to check them off our checklist. So I'm gonna cross off gamers jargon.
Okay.
And let's move on to. Why don't you pick the next one? Or you want me to pick the next one?
No, go ahead. Yeah, I'll let you do this.
All right. Let's cover to mod or not to mod. I don't think that's a.
Yeah.
We both have pretty strong opinions on this.
Right.
And I feel like we can cover it fairly shortly. Why don't you start? Because I know you definitely have a strong opinion on this.
Yeah, I do. And a lot of people will disagree with me because they feel that developers come. Okay, so developers generally have an idea of how they want you to play their game. Most developers.
Yep.
And now there's some developers that don't, whatever. But so they create a game and they make it moddable, which is totally understandable. I understand mods and I understand they add flavor to a game that's maybe missing something. The problem, my biggest qualm with mods is, and I have people in my life that do this, or I know people, friends, family, whatever, that will buy a game day one, and someone will have a mod for it 12 hours in, and they install these mods to make the game better.
Mm-hmm.
But how in that 12 hours
do you know the game? If you're making the game better.
Like, to me, it's like there's so many people. Like you watch Twitch streamers, any of those streaming services, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Those guys are out there. I understand they're doing it because they want to show people I get it. I'm all for them doing it too. I just have trouble supporting people that do that. Just in my own opinion. I don't expect people to support me for the things I do all the time either.
Yeah. So your general.
Like, I don't mind mods once you played the game. Say, like Skyrim, for instance. Yeah. Play the whole game before you go mod the crap out of it.
Yeah, and I'll step in here because, like, this is kind of where I agree. Like, I think mods should be used to get extra mileage out of the game.
Right. Or, like, quality of life.
Or that's the other niche case I have is quality of life.
That's a pretty important thing.
Because, like, for example, one of the most... I'd never mod this game. We've talked about it several times. Mm-hmm. Satisfactory.
Right.
There's a mod in that game that a lot of streamers and content creators use that just literally all it does is make your inventory like 5 times as large.
Right.
So they don't have to spend all this time going back to base gathering resources.
Right.
And
which for a streamer is pretty important.
It's important because it's a quality of life to make the content more approachable.
Right.
And so like in Factorio, another one that I use, like my quote unquote vanilla Factorio I run has a honk mod, so when trains start and stop, they honk. Because if you've ever played Factorio, getting killed by trains is just always happening. Like you walk across the train.
Kind of like real life. If a train doesn't honk, you might not hear it coming, and it might run you over.
The other one I do is when I play multiplayer, I have a to-do list, and it literally just you assign tasks to people, and anybody can alter it and say that they did a task. And the third one is a clock, an in-game clock. So I know how fast night is approaching, and I know how long night's gonna last.
Right. No, that all makes sense.
And that's all quality of life stuff. Now, I've played enough Factorio, and I've played enough vanilla Factorio
extra mods
that I am starting to branch into overhaul mods.
Yep.
And a lot of them, like the functionality of the game stays the same for the most part. You're taking things off belts, putting them in assemblers, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I 100% agree with you. Like, especially like if you're expecting people to play with you, like in a multiplayer game.
Right.
If you're going to overhaul mod a game in a multiplayer game.
Right.
That I haven't played.
Right, yeah. If I've never played it, you probably...
I'm not going to mod my game completely to play with you.
No, I probably won't either.
Because I don't even know what the game's about. Like, how am I going to know that this mod is even something that I want?
Right. Yeah, no, one of the things that came up one time was we were getting ready to play Mech Warrior 5?
Mech Warrior 5, yeah.
Yeah, and I know this is not with my son, but there was another guy I wanted to play. And he told me I had to download this mod because it made the mechs more modifiable. It gave me more guns. I'm like, is there not enough guns in the game before? I mean, I've never even played this game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. And then when I went to play with my son, I was telling him that I'm not interested in playing with 20 mods.
Yeah.
He says, how about one that just takes away the cuts? So even if you
the quality of life. And you're like,
that's great.
That's great.
That'll cut off like 15 hours in a 24-hour day.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's a quality of life mod.
Yeah,
Let's do that.
The first MechWarrior 5 run I did with another player, I played maybe 5 hours of the game.
Right.
I'm like, oh, this is cool. And my buddy's like, oh, I love that game. Let's play a campaign together.
Right.
Played the campaign, and I shit you not, it was like 30 mods.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm like, and I really wanted to play the game, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Right. And now, like, I didn't even know how base game works. Like, we're playing a base campaign. I don't even know how it works half the time because I'm like, I'm like, oh, where's the engines to put in the machine? And I'm like, I just don't know any of this.
Well, there are those people that just have to have hundreds of mods. They feel like I don't know why. I've never actually been able to get somebody that does do that to ever actually explain to me why they need to have hundreds of mods in a game they've never played before they've even played the game. Yeah. Like, I don't know, do it. There's a lot of people who do it. I mean, you can just go through the mod forums and read.
Okay.
There's lots of people that talk about, hey, I modded this game and it came out yesterday and I put 20 mods on. It's awesome. I'm like, how was it not awesome before? Like,
it's just one of those things.
It's a personal preference.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah, it's a personal preference. But just let me state that don't expect me to play a brand new game with you if you're modding out of it.
No. Yeah, it's the same thing. I've seen people modding Baldur's Gate and using why?
But then again, maybe they have 200 hours in and then finish all the playthroughs. You know,
I mean, well, after that, that's fine. But you know, they were already had mods made for the game before it even got released because people were making them in beta.
Yeah, ultimately, if you want to mod your game, go nuts, but don't expect other players to mod their game to play with you.
Right. There's plenty of us out there that like to try to play the vanilla game first.
Yeah.
And then, or use quality of life mods. I'm actually a fan of quality of life. I am. Anything that can make the game smoother and not change the way the game is meant to be
not change the functionality.
Like a clock in the game is not a terrible thing. Unless the game is literally like Don't Starve.
Yeah,
where you know you're not sure when night's coming.
Well, actually, Don't Starve does have a clock.
Oh, does it? Okay. Yeah. Well, there's other games that don't necessarily
but like
have
a horror game where you're not supposed to know what time night's coming and all that. Yeah.
You know, you're underground, so you don't know where the sun is.
All right. Well, I feel like the mod thing kind of segues nicely into our next one. That's how companies balance games.
Companies balance games.
Yeah. So a good example is a multiplayer game.
Oh, geez. Here we go.
Let's take Team Fortress 2, for example.
I've never played it, so.
Oh, okay, let's take something more ubiquitous.
Sorry,
I didn't want to use this example, but I will.
Okay.
Let's take Overwatch. You're familiar with
Overwatch? Yes.
Okay, so Overwatch comes out.
Never played it, but
and X character, we'll say McCree, I think is one of the characters.
Right.
You
got me there.
All of a sudden, he's got an 80% win rate in the game.
Right.
And he's just destroying every match. People aren't having fun. People are contesting who gets to actually play him. People are fighting over it, all this and that, because he's so overpowered.
Right.
In comparison to all the other characters.
Well, okay, just before we go on, maybe instead of using video games, maybe we should use something that's a little more near and dear to our hearts.
What?
Let's use Magic the Gathering.
Okay, Magic the Gathering.
Because this is a pretty huge topic. And I vary my opinion differently than you do.
So Magic the Gathering.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Magic the Gathering. Okay.
How do they balance it?
So I feel like I have to at least preface part of the video game thing before I.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
So because I talked about it a little bit.
Yep.
And it's this idea of, so there's two schools of thoughts in balancing things. You either buff all the other characters, or buff something with performing badly, or you nerf. So buff is you make something better, you make it more playable, make it more powerful. Nerfing is you remove some of the power level of something.
Right.
That's one school of thought. Buff versus nerf. Magic the Gathering and Wizards of the Coast, and most card games, you can't alter the text of a card once it's been printed. Or you can, but it's like errata and like it gets to be complicated. So what they end up doing is they do ban versus playable. Right. And the idea of banning says you cannot use this. And the idea of playable says you can use this. So that's the two schools of thoughts in balancing games, right?
Right.
You can or cannot use something, or we're going to alter the properties of this to make it usable or unusable.
Right.
So, I guess what's your question about Magic the Gathering?
Well, it's even Magic the Gathering or even the video games. It's both the same thing.
But let's stick to the Magic analysis for now.
Well, I know Magic does a lot to try to make it fun for everyone and make it so the power seep is not overwhelmingly one. Like when they look at the Pro Tour and they see 7 out of the top 8 decks are playing
4 copies of the same card.
Right? Like their whole knee jerk reaction is to immediately
ban that
card, or in the next set print a card out that just overwhelms that card, so it's useless.
So, and that's normally what they would do. They would print a card in the next set that nullifies it or print an answer to it.
Right.
But sometimes a card is so egregiously overpowered.
Right.
Prime example is in the original Mirrodin block.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of when it really like became more well known. There was a card called Arcbound Ravager, and there was a card called Skullclamp.
Right.
And the two didn't really do a whole lot together.
Right.
But they were each in and of themselves so powerful. So Arcbound Ravager is a 1/1 for I think 1 or 2 mana.
Right.
Seems like why would that be powerful? But it's his ability. It's modular 1. And modular means he comes in with a 1/1 counter on him. Okay, that's kind of cool.
Right.
When he dies, he can place it on another creature. That's modular.
Right.
Arcbound Ravager also has this crazy ability that if you sacrifice an artifact, you put a 1/1 counter on him.
Okay.
Well, Mirrodin, your lands were artifacts, your creatures were artifacts.
Right.
Everything was an artifact.
Right.
And so you'd have these instances where people swing with an Arcbound Ravager, it doesn't get blocked. You'd sacrifice everything on your board and kill the opponent.
Right.
And it was so powerful, and there was just no good answer for it.
Right.
That people were just playing Arcbound Ravagers, and the price went up on them, and it just got so overpowered that they banned it.
Right.
And it was one of the first like big bans that they did that I remember, at least in my time playing.
Right.
I know there's some instances beforehand. And then Skullclamp, to this day, like Arcbound Ravager, you can play in most of the Eternal formats because his power level isn't as crazy as it used to be because there's ways to deal with him. But Skullclamp is still banned in almost every single format.
Right.
Because it's a 1 mana artifact that you put on the table. It gives the creature +1/-1. That's not very good.
Right.
It costs 1 to equip. But when that creature dies, you draw 2 cards.
Okay.
So people are running decks with like elves, for example.
Right.
And in elves, you can play basically your entire hand in 1 turn.
Right.
Because they can generate mana, they pay for each other, blah 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 blah.
Right.
So the only limitation in elves, the only thing that stops that deck from just running people over, is the amount of cards you have in hand. Well, now if you can kill 1 elf and draw 2 more elves, because of Skullclamp, you're absolutely breaking what that deck can do, and it's becoming egregiously overpowered and played more than anything. So they banned it. Right. And that's kind of the case logic for most of the bans throughout Magic's history, is this card so powerful that you just can't deal with it?
Right.
And then it kind of shifted.
Yeah, that's I think that's where my personal issue comes with it. So that shifting.
And the shift came in that they were more worried about deck diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason behind it is kind of interesting because there's several theories about why they actually did it. But the main idea behind it was that they were broadcasting the Pro Tours and broadcasting the GPs, and it was becoming a filmed and entertainment value effect.
Right.
Well, it's just like when Shaq was in the NBA.
Right.
He was so...
Yeah, well, yeah, Shaq, Jordan, those guys were
so overbearing that they literally changed the rules of the game so that Shaq wasn't as good, he wasn't as effective as he was.
Right.
And it's this idea that, now somebody else can kind of, there's reasons to watch other things, right? Other players, other teams. You don't just assume that someone's going to win everything.
Right.
And it promotes a better entertainment value. And I think that was their logic behind the new idea of banning.
I can't disagree with why they do. I mean, they did it, and it's their company. They do what they want. For me, I think it takes away a little bit. I know just from even when we were playing Magic a lot over at the other place, we had 20 some players, give or take, probably closer to 30 coming and going at different times. And sure, you take I'll use Cons of Tarkir because that's kind of where we started really
Yep.
getting into it. Yeah, well, Theros was, but Cons of Tarkir
Yep.
was the next set, that next block, and there was just a few. There was the Siege Rhinos that were huge, popular in the
Absolutely
Grand
powerful
Prix,
card, yeah.
very powerful. But even in our little sampling, I know you found ways to deal with it fairly
There were ways printed to
competently.
deal with it,
I
yeah.
know there was another couple other players that did, and even my stupid mono green, as long as I got going before the Siege Rhinos did, I didn't ever have any problems with them.
And that's why it was never banned.
And right, but they'll take well, maybe I should use this the Mirror Wizards. I can't think of their name right off the top of my head.
Mirror Wizards?
They were like, I can't think of the name of them. They banned a bunch of wizards here not that long ago. Probably about 3 years ago, I suppose now, because I haven't been playing Magic. But they were, I can't think of the names of them off the top of my head. I wish I could. But
Do you know what they did?
no, I don't remember off the top of my head. But I just remember it was a knee jerk reaction to another card. And these wizards, they were counterspell. I think they did counterspell. I think they had an ability to let you counterspell something or another.
Okay.
They just banned them right up, And it's like, okay, but you gotta like when a set comes out, you gotta give players time, especially wait until at least the block is out. If you have a block of 3 sets, I don't even know if they do blocks anymore, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But if they have, say, well, I'll go back to Cons. If they have Cons of Takir, Dragons of Takir, and Fate Reforged, let the whole set come out before you start ban.
Right.
Because or like in our meta, instead of just banning the guy playing Siege Rhinos because he was winning more matches, winning more tournaments than not.
Yeah.
Let us figure out how to get him.
So, part of the reason why I think they shifted as well is that it used to be you design a Magic set, you release it, then you design the next set.
Right.
Well, now they have like 3 sets designed.
Oh yeah, they're designing way.
And so if they realize that there's a flaw with no way to fix it, and they've already printed all the cards,
right,
then they have to kind of ban something.
So that's you're right, but I was lots of that. I like the idea of letting humans figure things out. It's like watching. I can't remember. You know the names of all these guys in Magic, and I don't. But I remember the gut shot.
Oh yeah,
just something silly.
Yep.
That there's no way. He was playing, and he probably should have lost that. But for some reason, he had that gut shot at the end, and pow, he wins.
Yeah, that was during the Eldrazi winter, which a lot of that stuff got banned, and that was for very good reason.
Right.
Because
Annihilator was a.
And it wasn't even that. It was the Thought Knot Seers, the Reality Smashers.
Oh, yeah, right.
They didn't have Annihilator, but there was a card that made everything cost 2 less.
Right.
And
yeah, I remember that.
The ILU game. Yeah. And they banned that one card. The deck was still playable, but it wasn't nearly as egregiously overpowered because it was like something like 80 or 70% of the field was that deck,
right,
or variants of that deck.
Well, I guess overall, my whole experience in all the games, whether it's video games or card games or whatever, I'm not a professional player, so I don't play for money. But I have found over the years, I'll use my experience with World of Warcraft or even StarCraft for that matter, and any of those other games, is that if you need your like in World of Warcraft, they would do that all the time. Buff and debuff immediately.
Yeah.
It's like, calm down. Because usually when they did that, it was just because there was a minority group of people yelling as loud as they could in the forums and on the social media.
Well, that's still true to this day.
No, and it's dumb. I think you just give people time. It's like when the Overwatch guy releases the big shield guy and all of a sudden he's indestructible. No, he's not indestructible. You haven't given gamers time to figure it out yet. Yeah. And they will.
Yeah, because
gamers can figure almost anything out.
It's funny because there's such an outcry when something is like quote unquote broken or overpowered in a game that like again the knee-jerk reaction takes place, and like what do you do, right? Do you listen to all the people that are yelling and accept the negative reviews,
right?
Like, so do you let them review bomb you,
right,
and tank the value of your game because you're gonna let them figure it out,
right?
Or you're a quote unquote lazy dev,
right? Yeah, no, I understand the complications.
Yeah, there's just so much to it, and it's like people get so passionate and so angry about certain things.
Oh, and I get angry and passionate too. I agree. I mean, it's just It's hard. I wouldn't want to be a developer. If I was going to be a developer, I'd be the guys from Caves of Cud. I just make games. If you don't like it, oh well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, don't play my game. That's how I feel about stuff too. Like, if you don't like my game, then don't play it. If you don't want to come into my store, don't come into my store. If you don't like the way I talk, then go home.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, I'm not making people come in here and same thing. The game companies. I just wish the game companies would kind of stick to their guns. Old Bethesda and old Blizzard used to just kind of stick to their guns and do what they wanted. You know, that's how Blizzard became Blizzard.
But now they're beholden to the shareholders.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they shareholders, public trading, and blah blah blah. It sucks, and I don't have to be happy about it.
So I guess that covered a little bit more than buffing and nerfing.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the same.
It's the logic behind it, right?
Right.
And then I guess
it's all about balancing games.
Yeah, and like ultimately at the end of the day, if the balance of your game is causing fun issues with the game, then yeah, you should probably balance it.
Yeah.
Like if it's causing the majority of players of your game to not have fun.
Yeah.
And to walk away.
Right. Yeah. Right. Like, yeah, if you released a real-time strategy game or an FPS, and there was only one gun in the game that anybody had played, I mean,
then it's time to do something.
It might be time to figure out why one gun out of 10,000 guns you put in the game that only anybody wants to use.
So I guess my advice to, if you're playing a game and you feel like something's ridiculously overpowered, jump on the bandwagon, because you know what, at some point or another it's gonna change.
Just read Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
Sooner or later they're gonna change how that game works.
Yeah.
Or they're not gonna ever have anybody play it.
Yep. Anything else on this list that we can cover real quick? I'm gonna throw this in here.
Okay, let's do it.
And this is just gonna be a short little blurb.
Uh-oh.
I think we agreed on this already, so I think I can
okay,
tease it, if we will.
Yeah.
We have on our list of things to talk about games we haven't played yet or played very little in our Steam accounts.
Yep.
And this might be a new series, we don't know, but basically, like, we're gonna give each other a game. I would like to stick to ones that we both have and haven't played, so that way we can kind of get both sides of the story, because we have different ways we play games for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Tomato.
Yeah. But keep your eyes and ears peeled, because I think we've agreed that we're gonna do Rain World.
Yep. Rain World.
And Rain World is a side scroller kind of RPG thing, basically.
Sure. Yeah,
it's survival horror.
Something. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played it yet. Really.
There's all those fun little tags you love on it.
Oh, I love them. Yep.
But it's kind of hard to describe the game. Just go on Steam, or I think it's on Switch. I think it's on every platform for the most part.
Probably.
Just look up Rain World. And if it looks interesting, stay tuned, because we're probably going to do an episode on it sometime in the near next couple months when we get to playing it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can start playing it whenever. I know we have a few other projects going on right now. But
also, in the near future, be expectant of an Astroneer episode. We talked about it in one of our prior episodes a little bit, Hidden Gems.
Yep.
But we are almost done with Astroneer, and we're going to do I hope a fairly in-depth dive on what we like and don't like about it.
Yep, probably.
There's a lot of both sides of that game, so.
And we probably should be doing one on Project Zomboid.
Yeah, we'll probably do a Project Zomboid at some point. Yeah, just we're gonna start doing more game-specific reviews.
Right.
I think in the near future, and we're gonna try to we'll probably do more episodes of the Hidden Gems too.
Yeah, and if it works out well and we do the Hidden Gems and we do the games, I was even thinking maybe I would start buying like new board games, just one indie board games.
Yeah.
And or even I know a friend of ours has tons of board games that he's never played.
Yeah.
Just have him bring them in. We can do reviews on them and talk about them like that.
Sounds good to me. Anyways, that's it for this episode of Guff Stuff Weekly. Kind of a grab bag of different things, so hopefully there's something in there you like. I'm Javen.
I'm Guff. Later.